It is Thursday, April 24th, and President Trump savaging the Canadian government, breaking down and explaining in calm, simple language why Canada's government is so angry with him, because he said the quiet part out loud, how this strange deal we've been living with for the last 50 years has been unspoken and completely unnecessary. Why are we spending $200 billion a year to keep another country afloat? Wait till you see this. Also, a loyal and committed member of the deep state, Jake Sullivan, losing his mind last night on national television, saying the progress Trump's made in just the first 100 days cannot be overstated on rooting out the rot inside our federal government. Coming not from someone on Trump's team, but a loyal member of the Biden administration, and major news on the MAHA agenda, making big progress in protecting the health of our children, and CNN appearing to think it's a negative. Why? And more stories as well from around the country. But before we get started, thank you for liking and sharing these videos. It really helps out the channel. And consider subscribing so you don't miss these regular updates. So Trump announced Liberation Day on April 5th, which got all the attention, but weeks earlier, he levied a 25% universal tariff on autos, aluminum, and steel. The 25% auto tariff on all imported cars and auto parts, already shaking up the industry bigly. And U.S. auto workers are thrilled. Wall Street may be a bit dicey about it, but the workers, the men and women at these plants, are loving it. The United Auto Workers Union coming out again, hailing these tariffs as critical and long overdue, praising the move as a decisive shift away from decades of offshoring and plant closures. Trump's message to both U.S. and foreign automakers is simple. If you want to sell in America, then build in America. GM announcing they've begun ramping up manufacturing capacity and hiring in Indiana, while Ford launching a brand new campaign called From America for America. Honda announcing last week they're considering moving the majority of their manufacturing to the United States from, guess where, Mexico and Canada, aiming for 90% of cars sold in the country to now be made domestically. All thanks to these tariffs. Canada's new prime minister scratching his head, completely perplexed on how he's going to get out of this conundrum. His new approach to subsidize these automakers to the tune of $8 billion a year. Get this, offering to pay them the difference that they'll lose keeping their plants in his country. Trump levies the tariff to build in Canada. Canada's prime minister saying he'll pay the tariff for them. You can't make this up. Watch.
Agreement. And as well, we are developing a framework for auto producers in Canada to get relief from these counter tariffs as long as they maintain their production and investment in our country. Importantly, every single dollar raised from those counter tariffs, our counter tariffs, which could reach around $8 billion before remission, will go directly to our auto workers and the companies affected by those tariffs.
Trump not having it, saying Canada no longer has a choice. For too long, for nearly 50 years, nobody said the quiet part out loud. Why is the U.S. subsidizing Canada, subsidizing another country? 90% of Canadian orders coming from the United States. We pay them $200 billion a year for what? It's a favor. We're doing them a $200 billion a year favor, $200 billion of our tax dollars to prop up their country. But the dirty little secret is why? Why was this arrangement ever struck? There's no reason for it. There's nothing Canada does or has that we don't. There's no reason. Labor's not cheaper in Canada. Canada has literally nothing that we don't. There's no reason for this to continue. Maybe if they were a state, it would make sense, but they're not a state. Like they keep saying, they're a sovereign country. Trump savaging Canada's government yesterday, doing it calmly though, and rationally. Explaining all this during his Oval Office press gaggle, the first person, and surely the first president, to say all of this out loud. Watch.
Again, we don't really want Canada to make cars for us. to put it bluntly. We want to make our own cars, and we're now equipped to do that. They took a lot of our car business. Mexico, too, took a lot of our car business. We want to make the cars here. I'm running this country. I'm not running Canada. And that's why I asked Trudeau, who I call Governor Trudeau affectionately, but I asked him, why are we spending $200 billion to support Canada, to subsidize Canada? And he was unable to answer the question. I mean, why are we doing that? And I have to be honest, as a state, it works great. As a nation, considering the fact that most of the nation, 95% of Canada, what they do is they buy from us and they sell to us. They sell to us. If we didn't buy their oil, and we don't need their oil. We have more oil than anyone, but we don't need their oil. We don't need their lumber. We don't need their cars. We don't need anything. So I said, why are we doing this? Why are we spending $200 billion? It doesn't make sense. If we needed something, that would be a different subject. So I'm working well with Canada. We're doing very well. We're working on a deal. We'll see what happens. But again, why, representing this country, why are we spending $200 billion to support and subsidize another country? Because if they didn't have us, and if we didn't spend that money, as Trudeau told me, they would cease to exist. He said that to me. They would cease to exist, which is true, certainly as a country.
In another story, major news out of RFK's Health and Human Services announcing the end to petroleum-based dyes in our foods and medicine. No more loading kids' snacks with bright, vibrant colors, yellows and reds, only legally allowed to be sold here in the U.S. in food marketed to children in the United States. You can't sell this stuff in foreign countries, in foreign markets. Europe doesn't allow it. Canada doesn't allow it. Why does the U.S. allow it? No more. Trump's new FDA commissioner announcing Tuesday that all petroleum-based synthetic dyes are now banned from our food supply. They will be phased out completely, and by 2026, there will be no food product on the shelves that contains green number 3, red 40, yellow 5, yellow 6, blue 1, or blue 2. FDA Commissioner Marty Makary going on CNN yesterday, going on national television, exposing what's really inside the food our children have been eating. What's really in these food dyes being pumped into our snacks. This clip will shock you to your core. Watch.
Why are these petroleum-based dyes in our food and in our medication in the first place?
Well, good question, Dana. I don't think we appreciated the potential risks to human health and child health when they were first introduced. Yellow dye number 5, for example, was noted to be a bright, vibrant yellow color as the byproduct of coal tar in the coal ash, and then people decided to put it in fabric, and then they thought, well, we can put it in food. The studies have caught up with the introduction of these petroleum-based chemical food dyes, and the data doesn't look good. Studies have shown an association with ADHD. It also makes ultra-processed food look more attractive for young kids, messing with their minds where they feel full and they want more of the food. And we've got an epidemic of childhood chronic diseases, so we are erring on the safe side and moving to remove these from the U.S. food supply.
CNN clearly taken aback by what Dr. Makary came on to say. Dana Bash shifting the tone of the conversation, shifting the conversation completely away from MAHA, away from health, and toward politics, of course, trying to throw Marty a curveball, trying to bait him into attacking his boss, RFK Jr., asking about the resignation of this NIH researcher who accused RFK of silencing him, saying Dr. Kevin Hall, who's a top researcher on this issue, ultra-processed foods, he quit because he says he experienced RFK silencing him. What is your response to this criticism? Unbelievable. But Dr. Makary handled it like a boss. Roll the tape.
Dr. Makary, I do want to ask about something that happened at the NIH last week. Dr. Kevin Hall, who is a top researcher on this issue, ultra-processed foods, he quit because he says he experienced censorship under RFK. What is your response to this criticism? And more broadly, how concerned are both of you about losing somebody who is so focused on the issues that you care so much about, which is finding out about these ultra-processed foods?
Well, I don't know that individual. I understood that he resigned. I think there are some people who, when they are resigning, are taking some cheap shots. Look, Republican, Democrat, independent moms turned out to vote for President Trump on this very issue that Secretary Kennedy has championed. So I think we need to recognize getting petroleum-based food dyes is not a silver bullet. It's not going to instantly convert America's kids to being a healthy generation, but it's one step, and there's a lot of unity around this individual topic.
CNN wasn't done yet. Dana Bash trying her hardest to fearmonger, sell the panic, pushing the narrative that the downsizing at FDA was reckless and saying it could make Americans less safe. Watch Dr. Macari shutting this down. No, Dana, all of the cuts were in communications and lobbying. We terminated the lobbyists that have been riddled in our health agencies for over a decade, and not one single scientist, not one inspector has been laid off. Watch.
Somebody who was at the FDA, who left before you were confirmed. His name is Jim Jones. He oversaw food and nutrition policy at the FDA, and he said he was resigning because his work was compromised by thoughtless cuts at the FDA. Both he and Dr. Hall, what they're saying, again, is that they're excited about the MAHA movement. They're excited about food safety goals. But is your ability to make meaningful progress stunted because the personnel are no longer in place to accomplish your goals with all of these cuts?
No, Dana, and I'm glad you asked, because all the cuts were limited to communications staff. You would not believe the number of communications staff at the agency. Redundancies in IT and in legislative affairs and lobbyists from the FDA to the Hill. There's been a fiefdom culture, and we're now eliminating redundancies and consolidating those services. No cuts were made. There were no layoffs to scientists or food inspectors. And my job as commissioner, coming in after those cuts, is to make sure that the scientists and inspectors have all the resources they need to do their job well.
In another story, Jake Sullivan, Biden's national security advisor, who for 4 years was the one man single-handedly responsible for the war in Ukraine and the complete botchery of U.S. foreign policy, a committed and loyal member of the deep state, yesterday for the first time speaking out, going on MSNBC on Rachel Maddow's show and melting down over Trump dismantling the bureaucratic machine that they've built inside our federal government, saying the damage Trump's done to the swamp over the last 100 days is more than just significant, saying he thinks it's possible to be rebuilt if Dems were to win in 2028, but if he continues, it could be gone forever. Yes, exactly. That's the point. That's the goal, Jake, to permanently destroy and dismantle the deep state once and for all. Watch.
When you say that President Trump is dismantling America's core advantages in the world, the things that have been our major advantages, the things that make us the power that we are. You describe him as systematically dismantling those things. What are those advantages, and do you see his work against them as being irrevocable?
Well, Rachel, I wouldn't say this. I'm not a person who usually speaks in hyperbole. I say it because I genuinely believe it. You ask, what are those advantages? And there are a few. It begins with America's unique system of alliances. No other power in the world has the strong, capable allies the United States has enjoyed for decades. And Donald Trump is intent on busting up those alliances. It's our unique capacity to attract talent from around the world. We can count on the talent of 7 billion people. China can only count on the talent of 1 billion people. But Donald Trump is casting doubt on whether we will be a welcoming place for students and researchers and people who want to come here to start companies. It's about a unique system of scientific research and innovation where the government, the private sector, and yes, research universities all come together to invent some of the most groundbreaking things of the past century. And yet he's going after basic research funding at NIH, and he's going after major universities. And finally, it's about our unique capital markets and our currency. And you saw when he did his quote unquote Liberation Day that the world started to question whether America could really be relied upon for its capital markets and for the dollar. And underpinning all of that, of course, is our unique constitutional system underpinned by the rule of law, which, as you have quite articulately said, he's put under threat in various ways. These are the things that are distinctively American. And in less than 100 days, President Trump has gone after all of them. I don't believe anything is ever irrevocable because I believe in the capacity of the American people to reinvent and regenerate. But the damage he has done so far is significant, and it appears that there's probably more to come.
And I gotta say, seeing Jake Sullivan rattled by what Trump's doing brings me a lot of joy. You know they're making progress when Jake Sullivan starts pulling out his hair. Alright, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe, we'll see you next time.